Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, January 24th, about 5:30 a.m. Central Time as I speak. Joe is out today. He is in Florida. So Matt Bennett is joining me. We're going to start off this morning with some news out of Argentina. The Buenos Aires Grains Exchange cut its forecast for Argentina's soybean and corn crops. The exchange estimates this season's soybean crop at 49.6 million metric tons, a reduction of 1 million metric tons from the previous projection. The nation's corn crop was also reduced by 1 million metric tons to 49 million metric tons. The cuts were attributed to hot and dry weather. Some parts of Argentina's soybean areas are expected to receive rainfall in the coming days. However, warm temperatures will likely limit the benefits of that precipitation. Is this situation down in Argentina a market mover, or are we going to have to see crop conditions worsen before the market pays attention to this headline?
The market's already paid attention to it, to be honest. It's a big reason that we've seen the move that we've seen in beans over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, especially. Bean meal has come to life. Anytime that you see bean meal kind of leading the way as far as the complex goes, you know that it's got a lot to do with Argentina. So it varies as far as what people think is going to be the issue down there, or the severity down there. A lot of the folks we've talked to have said they're still getting decent rainfall, in some of the areas that they need to. So they feel like production would still be pretty strong. Now, if you only take 1 million or 2 tons off, if that's the end game, then I have to think this is pretty much a non-event. So yes, we've already paid a lot of attention to it, and we certainly would pay quite a bit more attention to it if the weather worsened from here.
Right. And that was going to be my next question. If the weather does turn around and we do see rains come back into the scenario, I guess you'd say, is it still pretty early? Can we bounce right back from this?
Yeah, it's still fairly early. I mean, it's you've got, of course, a decent window as far as what South America in totality can harvest. As far as Argentina goes, it's a little bit, it's not near as huge of a window, but you've just got a lot of different scenarios unfolding down there right now. You've got a lot of rain in center Brazil. You've got not enough rain in southern Brazil and Argentina. So, I don't know. It's just going to be really interesting to see how, how this plays out, because if you get rain there, but you still get rain in Brazil, and you start to kind of, I guess, get more worried about quality, because Brazil, that's been one of their main issues here this week, with China kind of pushing some of these beans back towards them. I don't know. For Argentina, you're probably not going to hurt it enough. But maybe if Brazil goes the other way, you could actually gain more in Brazil than what you lose in Argentina. I think that's what a lot of people are losing sight of. So if Argentina gets better and then Brazil gets worse, maybe that's even bigger story on down the road. But it's my opinion.
So we have some more news out of Argentina. The nation will temporarily reduce grain export taxes. The tax cuts are due to an improving economy and the fulfillment of a campaign promise by President Javier Milei. Agricultural groups in Argentina have been advocating for the reductions as the industry grapples with drought conditions and declining crop prices. Argentina's crops have been experiencing a rainfall deficit since late December. The tax cuts will apply to soybeans, soybean derivatives, corn, and wheat, and the cuts will begin on Monday and then continue through June. In your opinion, are these two Argentina stories related? And how do you feel these tax cuts will affect our grain markets, or do they play into our markets, what we got going on?
I mean, that's what was going on in the overnight market, essentially. That's the main negative news. I don't think that you've got enough weather issues right now to be able to just barge higher, no matter what the news is. And essentially what they're doing here is giving these guys a chance to let go of some of these beans. The situation for them is that they hold on to this stuff forever at times, and the reason that they do so is to fight inflation in the past. Now, clearly they've reined inflation in somewhat, but they've still got awfully large inflation. They've done one heck of a job in trying to get that economy pushed back in the right direction. but you've still got these growers that are holding on to a fair amount of beans. And as soon as you see the export tax reduced and they say, hey, looks like we can step forward and make some sales here, that's what you've got going on here today. Basically the market is assuming you're going to see a fair amount of soybean meal, soy products that hit the market due to this type of a new situation. So yeah, I think they're certainly related. I mean, that's the reason why they cut the tax. It sounds like to me, I mean, that's maybe it was going to happen sooner or later, but basically they brought it on a little bit quicker due to the fact that the weather's so poor.
Right. So Trump's pick for Ag Secretary nominee Brooke Rollins will advocate for all types of fuels. During her nomination hearing on Thursday, Rollins distanced herself from her former employer, who actually opposed biofuels. Rollins stated that she would stick to Trump's current plan for energy dominance, which includes biofuels. She also intends to work with Trump's pick for Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, on 45Z tax credit guidance. Earlier this week, President Donald Trump said that he would declare a national energy emergency. As part of that declaration, the administration will consider granting waivers to permit the year-round sale of E15. What are your thoughts on what Rollins had to say about the future of biofuels under the Trump administration? Do you think they're going to be as friendly as she alluded to?
I don't know.
Yeah.
She's not. Everyone's not super excited about, I guess, the rhetoric so far. I mean, she's an unknown. We don't really know a lot about her as far as politically. You know where she stands as far as her politics go, but at the same time, as you said, she wasn't exactly working for someone who was pro biofuels. The challenge that you're into moving forward is that we continue to lose world export share. When we lose world export share due to the fact that Brazil is growing and probably not going to stop growing anytime soon, biofuels pretty much have to be a part of the mix if you're going to use up as much corn and soybeans is what we would hope to see. So, I mean, if you're losing out of one side of the puzzle, you're going to have to kind of pick it up domestically. We certainly don't feed enough animals in the U.S. And so I know that the big biofuel program isn't necessarily what all the livestock producers want. It's not always been their favorite pick, but I can assure you from the corn and grain farmer perspective, as we continue to lose that export share, you're going to have some sort of a renewable fuels program, or it could be pretty dicey. So I'm a little bit concerned here. I think what she said yesterday sounded a little bit better, than what most of us felt like going in. But at the same time, it's concerning whenever you've got someone that is, like I said, such an unknown. We just don't know enough about her. Don't necessarily know where she stands. I want to give her a chance. By all means, you've got to think that if she feels the administration thinks that, for instance, having a renewable fuels program is good for rural America and something that we need to see, that she would support that. I can't imagine she wouldn't. But again, I don't know her. I don't know anything about her.
Exactly. And when it does come to her past, as you mentioned, she has not been for biofuels. A bit more on Rollins. She also said that she would consider making direct payments to farmers to offset losses from tariffs. She stated that the payments would be similar to the approach Trump used during his first term. And as we can all remember, during Trump's first term, the administration paid billions to farmers after tariffs on Chinese imports led to retaliatory tariffs on U.S. soybeans. Some senators criticized Rollins for her approach, saying farmers and ranchers simply want to export their products, not rely on the government for handouts to fix the issue. Rollins said that she also intends to reduce the nation's $42 billion agricultural trade deficit and expand access to trade markets. When asked about the impact of Trump's mass deportation effort on farm workers, she was unable to provide an answer. What are your thoughts on Rollins already floating the idea of direct payments to cover losses from tariffs?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
So whenever it comes to Trump bucks, if you will, I think most people would say, of course, like the guy said, we would rather just export our products, not have to worry about any additional money. That's in a perfect world. I know a lot of people get pretty ouchy when we're talking in this way because a lot of farmers might have the mentality that, hey, we don't want any socialistic programs in our country. And then all of a sudden, hey, if you want to help us out here, it wouldn't be such a bad idea. Here's the problem, though. I understand people being frustrated with the farmer having that mindset, but whenever what you are producing is directly affected by what the government has chosen to do, and it affects the flow of exports throughout the rest of the world and clearly affects the price on the board of trade, I understand why they're doing what they're doing. Do I like it? No, I don't really like it. But if they're going to do the prior, what are you going to do on the backside? You know, if they're going to affect you in a way that's going to hurt you financially, and there's nothing you can do about it, then I don't know. I mean, I don't know which one of them's worse. I mean, it's rough either way that you look at it. But I fully expect we're going to have some sort of tariff situation. I think whenever it gets right down to it, China's economy is not near as good as what it was previously, the last time that we put tariffs on. And so, with that being the case, you've got to expect Trump's not as worried about retaliatory efforts, if you will. And so, he's going to put some sort of tariff on. Yes, we still have a trade deficit. And given the situation we're in, where they've got, 1.3, 1.4 billion people, and we've got 350 million, we shouldn't have such a large trade deficit. And I do understand kind of where we're going with this, but I don't know. I don't want their job. I do not want their job. It's a tough one. As far as the deportation, we glossed over that, but that's a pretty big topic to a lot of people. I think whenever you get into a situation with farm workers, it's something that's going to have to be approached delicately, whether work visas, whatever it might be. There's a lot of areas of the U.S. that's not necessarily a corn and soybean country that rely heavily upon some of this labor. And so, I think that if these people that are doing the labor are trying to be here in good faith and aren't wreaking havoc on society, then by all means, they should have a chance to be here and work. Because I don't know, like Mackenzie, where do you find good help these days?
You can't.
You can't find good help. And so if we've got someone here that wants to work, if they're willing to try to do it the right way, let's give them a shot at it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. U.S. ethanol production increased last week. Weekly output of 1.1 million barrels per day was up marginally on the week and up 4.3% compared to the same week last year. Ethanol stocks were pegged at 25.9 million barrels. The print was up 3.5% compared to the previous week and up 1% versus the same week last year. Implied gasoline demand was down 2.9% compared to the previous week and down 2.2% versus the same week last year. On average, over the last 4 weeks, implied U.S. gasoline demand is down 1.9% compared to the same period last year. We have seen ethanol production remain strong as of late. In your opinion, how much corn do you think ethanol plants have purchased?
They're probably covered out at least 3 months. Right now, the coverage that they've got, I think, is pretty darn strong. Basis levels throughout the Corn Belt, quite frankly, whether it's at ethanol plants or other end users, is pretty good. You look, for instance, with us locally, one of the bigger ethanol plants is posting, I believe, 4 under for right now, and then option price in February, and then I believe they're 6 or 7 over for March. And that tells me that they're willing to go ahead and pay a little bit more for corn on down the line. They don't really want it now. I haven't talked to one grower that's told me, hey, we're driving right on the dump wherever they're going. I mean, everyone's sitting in line. So right now, I think ethanol plants are fairly well covered. I don't think they have the need or the necessity, if you will, to step in and really secure a lot of bushels. And that's to me, it's a good thing that we're boiling through the ethanol we are. They usually do a really good job of locking in margins ahead of time. I think whenever you've got, for instance, crude, backing off of some of the levels that we were at. Of course, the new administration, one of their big things is what drill baby drill, right? Mm-hmm. So if you see crude oil prices dip substantially, and I saw where Trump kind of demanded OPEC, I guess, in Saudi Arabia that, hey, why don't you guys lower the price of oil?
Yeah.
I don't know if it works that easily.
I don't think so.
But that was certainly a headline. And so if you take crude oil prices down, margins could get affected, and this current hot streak that we're on could maybe take a little bit of a back seat. But it hopefully right now, the way things look right now, it's good. Yeah. Hopefully we can sustain that.
Yeah, things are chugging right along. Onto the drought monitor. Precipitation was limited across the Corn Belt last week, and as a result, drought conditions were largely unchanged, except for some improvements in northern Indiana and northern Illinois. The High Plains received limited precipitation, while a cold air mass from Canada settled over the region, causing temperatures to drop 12 to 15 degrees below normal. And much like the Corn Belt, conditions were mostly unchanged across the area. When we look at the percentage of U.S. areas experiencing drought, corn 42%, soybeans 35%, winter wheat 23%, spring wheat 45%, and cattle country 33%. Drought conditions across the Corn Belt definitely haven't worsened in the last few months. However, they sure aren't improving. Is this a concern for farmers, or is it still too early to worry about?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a concern right now that I'm terribly worried about. I think the longer term type models and some of the correlations between the dry harvest concern me more than, for instance, the drought monitor in the month of January. I think you certainly want to have subsoil moisture. I know most growers I've talked to throughout this winter as I've been out and about have said we are dry, we're too dry, and I get it. I'm there with you. A wet spring can certainly cure a lot of sins from the past. We know that. But at the same time, I talked to a guy like Eric Snodgrass quite a bit, and he's very concerned about last fall's dryness, particularly in the month of September and October, and how that correlates because there's only like 4 other years that compare as far as how dry it was. Those other 4 years, three of those four had somewhat of a drought inducing or yield reducing drought. And so, I mean, not massive droughts each year, but certainly there was correlation. And so that's what I'm more concerned about, maybe than what the condition is right now. But by all means, anybody who doesn't have a whole lot of subsoil moisture going into the spring, I've been there. It's not a good feeling because darn good and well that you want a dry spring to get the crop up and going. We all want that. But on the back side of that, you want some sort of reserve that if this crop gets rooted down and you're able to get into some heat later on in the year, you can still go through some adverse conditions. So it's concerning to a point, but again, I think what's more concerning is some of the other factors.
Yeah, we're definitely thinking about the drought conditions up here in Nebraska. Cattle futures were higher once again yesterday. Live cattle were 20 cents to $1.05 higher. Feeders were 2 cents to 115 higher. We do have a cattle on feed report coming out here this afternoon. On feed as of January 1st is estimated at 99.8% of year ago levels. Placements are projected to be at 101.8% compared to last year, and marketings are estimated at 101.3% versus last year. This cattle market has absolutely been on fire recently. What is your take when it comes to cattle?
Cash led market. I mean, you can't have enough cattle on hand right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Kenzie, I've been concerned as we got into the high 190s. Now we got that 200. I've been waiting on this for 2 years.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have, but I really thought we were going to hit it a long time ago. Of course, we just ran out of firepower the first time around. But what is concerning to me is the way the funds trade cattle in the past is that it's kind of an all or nothing thing for the time being. You might be in the midst of what is going to be a tough back to break, if you will, for cattle. Yes, you may still have a longer term trajectory, a little bit higher, but you could also take a $25 or $30 hit in the cattle market as some sort of a corrective move because the funds decide to take money off the table and take some profits. So I've got to stay protected in some way, or definitely insurance, something. I'm not saying you go out there and buy a bunch of puts, but at the very least, I would think it'd be a very smart thing to do, especially with some of the guys I talk to and gals that their break evens are $6, $8, $10 below the market. Why not protect some of that? I just don't see any reason whatsoever not to protect cattle here. It doesn't mean you're bearish. It just means you're smart, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. We've seen the rug pulled out from under us way too many times when it comes to the funds. Alrighty. Well, that is all we have here this morning. Everyone have a great weekend. Have a great weekend, Matt. And we will be back on Monday.